Hello, I am Father Mark Georges. Today we begin our journey through section 3 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's a big section, we have a lot of work to do. Today we will look at man created in the image and likeness of God. Let's dive in. Our presentation will have four parts. First, we will talk about man created in the image of God. We will consider especially the dignity of the human person. Secondly, we will discuss the three dimensions of the human person. We will go on to speak about the obligation of the moral law and end, speaking with a discussion about the wombs and the impact effects of the wombs of original sin. Man, created in the image of God. The dignity of the human person is rooted in his creation in the image and likeness of God. It is realized in his vocation to divine blessedness. The foundation of his dignity lies in his rational nature, capable of establishing communion with God and with his fellow men, and is in his participation in divine sonship through grace. Only man is called to participate through knowledge and love in the life of God. For this purpose he has been created, and this is the fundamental reason for his dignity. The divine image then is present in all men and everyone. Man was created in the image and likeness of the Creator. So we read that in the book of Genesis on the sixth day when God created man. It says, "Let us create man in our image and likeness." God created man, male and female. Created in the image and likeness. Man is endowed with intelligence, with will. He is free. He has a conscience. He has a spiritual soul, which is immortal. Man, he also has a body. He's created male and female, so that means he's also created a body, but he's a unity of body and soul. In Gaudium et Spes, we read that man, human person, is the only creature on earth whom God has loved for himself. That means that when God sees man, the relationship is one of belonging. It's a relationship of love. From his conception, man is destined for eternal bliss. So the fruit of love is union. So God is created for very special union with God. God created man in his image and placed him on earth as Lord over it. So when we read the book of Genesis, after it says that God created man in his image and likeness, it goes on to say that he put him to be the Lord over the creatures, over and all over all the other animals and the other things that God had created. This doctrine constitutes one of the fundamental points of the teaching of sacred scripture on the nature of man. Man does not dominate, but because of his knowledge, he does not dominate over the rest of creation. But because of his knowledge, he is able to understand human nature, and he's able to mold his environment around him in order for him to flourish as a human being and as a child of God. With it, the dignity of man is highlighted, to whom the image and likeness of God places him at a level of dignity much higher than that of the rest of the creatures. In view of this resemblance, man is invested as Lord of the visible creation. In this slide, we're going to expand a bit on what we mean when we say man is a unity of body and soul. In the human person, we can identify three dimensions. The biological dimension. These are physiological and somatic functions. Then there is the psychological dimension. These are emotions and sentiments related to an awareness of self. We can also then distinguish the spiritual dimension, which are the intellect and the will. So biological functions is the spiritual, and in the intermediate, which is part biological and part spiritual, which is then the emotional or the psychological dimension of the human person. These three dimensions are meant to work together. We can introduce an important term here, which is the idea of integration. Integration, as it says on the slide, occurs when the functions on the three levels work together to bring about the overall good of the human person, which is captured and understood by the intelligence, and which is pursued or sought after by the will. We can think of an example of a vessel that has a very powerful engine. That engine would be the emotion. The then a vessel, however, if it has only a very powerful engine, that's not enough. If it's that just with an engine alone, without any direction, it crashes or get lost. You also need a braking system and a navigation system. So that would be our intelligence and our will to know where to go and how to direct the vessel. This is just an interesting example to keep in mind. And that's what we're talking about when we speak about integration, even though there's more to it than that. As a funny example, then, about how those three parts work together, there's a funny joke about a mom who's waking up her son. She says, "Come on, son, get up. It's time to go. You have to go to school." And he says, "Oh, mom, I'm tired. Mom, at school, the kids make fun of me. Um, I have nobody listens to me." And she says, "Son, you have to get up because you are the principal of the school." Okay. Well, it is it's a kind of a silly story, but what it portrays is that sometimes it's hard to do what you should do. You're the director of the school. You have a job. You just need to get up and you need to get to school, and you need to also be there first on time to set the example for the rest of the staff. So sometimes it can be hard. So the biological dimension is, is sometimes pushes us in a direction which is opposed to what we really should do, because we want to just stay in bed. But it's not necessarily bad. The biology, we need to rest. We do need to rest, but but just staying in bed with, at a time when we should, that's a disorder. And we shouldn't be in bed, sorry, then that's a disorder. And then the psychological also, the guy was saying all the kids, they don't listen to him, and so he doesn't feel like, he doesn't feel comfortable. Okay, it's a joke. But you can see how so sometimes psychologically there can be kind of like a break on for us to do what we should do. Now, to want to feel that you belong is something that is good, but at times that those feelings can lead us, putting us in direction against what is the proper thing. So the spiritual dimension or to give the guidelines and to say, well, okay, wow, I have a job to do, and now try to work a bit on acquiring a little more discipline, a little more order, so we can't get the sleep that we need. The biology is right, we need sleep, but it's not at that moment, at that time. So we need the spiritual has to put order. And the psychology, say, well, okay, I don't feel comfortable. You have to say, well, why don't you feel comfortable? But maybe there are aspects of our personality or the way we approach things that need to change. So that because it's not, it is good that there's something that we feel which is real, but what our soul can tell us, our intelligence can tell us, it can mean is that something that we need to address. Perhaps there's a fear that is preventing us from, some kind of a fear of socializing or, or building bonds of trust that are keeping us from relating better with others and developing relationships. So this is the idea of integration, where the soul, the intelligence, and the will be the directing, the braking system, and the navigation system for the biological and the psychological drives, which, though they are not bad, they need to be under the direction of reason. Another example is anorexia. It's a well-known condition of a person who refuses to eat because he or she is terrified to look fat. There we can see that, wow, food eating, which is something that is important for us, the person is afraid of looking, how they're going to look. So there we can see at times how the psychological desire to be appreciated, to others, how others perceive us, can lead us to have an exaggerated response. And that's where we need then to try to work on ourselves and understand, well, that these emotions, this aspect where it's not objective. Yes, I do. It's not good to be overweight, but I have to be more objective in the sense that to eat, I need to eat something. I have to be healthy, that I'm going overboard, right? So that others it's not being objective to say I'm not going to eat at all in order to look good, because then we actually end up looking kind of drawn, and we look like we are too thin. But these are just two examples to illustrate the point of integration. Integration, which occurs when the functions on the three levels work together to bring about the overall good of the human person. And integration is a very important task. Now we're going to look at the obligation of the moral law. By virtue of his soul and the spiritual powers of understanding and will, man is endowed with freedom. For this reason, he is able to understand the order established by God in creation. By his will, he is able to address himself to the true God. So he can pray, he can speak and communicate with God. Through his reason, man knows the voice of God that prompts him to do good and avoid evil. So we can say, natural inclinations, like all the other creatures on the planet, to know what is good for us. The creatures on the planet do what is good for them because of instinct, almost automatic. For us as human beings, we have to do it in a human way. That means engaging our intelligence and our will, listening also to the impulses and interpreting them, the impulses on the biological and the psychological level. Do good and avoid evil, then, is a spontaneous and universal knowledge based on moral experience and is called synderesis. The will is created to do good. Just as the intelligence is oriented to the truth, the will is to the good. And so therefore, man knows that he must do the good. What is the content of that good? That is what we will be discussing as we go along. On the other hand, we know that moral life also consists in educating our emotions, that we must acquire virtues that can lead us to what is truly good for us. So the moral life consists also in understanding what is the content of what is truly good for us. It is embracing that, accepting that, and then also putting it into practice. You can say then that there are three aspects to it. There's knowing what is good, accepting, embracing it, and then doing, putting it into practice through habits. And this leads to having a good life and a very happy life. The exercise of the moral life enhances and bolsters the dignity of the human person. The wound of original sin. Man, persuaded by the evil one, abused his freedom from the beginning of history. We read this in the book of Genesis. And we are very much aware of our brokenness as well. He succumbed to temptation and did evil. He retains the desire for good, but his nature bears the wound of original sin. He's inclined to evil and error. Original sin hurt or harmed or wounded the nature of the human person, leaving, we can say, four wounds in the soul of man. First, the intelligence is clouded. In other words, that the intelligence tends to ignorance and error. The will, is also tends to be turning on self. So there's a kind of a malice in the will. The irascible appetite, which is the appetite to overcome obstacles to do good, is weakened. The man is weakened, he's fragile in terms of his ability to overcome obstacles to do what is right. And then the concupiscible appetite for pleasure, is disordered. So there is a disordered desire for pleasure. Through his passion, death, and resurrection, Christ freed us from Satan and also the bonds of the captivity, we can say, of original sin. He earned us a new life in the Holy Spirit. We can now have forgiveness for sins, and his grace restored in us what sin had damaged, so that the guilt is due to sin, also that man, he has the grace also to struggle and overcome sin in his life. Yes, his friendship with God above all is restored. Man is now a child of God. God sees us as his children. This filial adoption, we can call it, transforms man giving him the possibility to follow the example of Christ, to have mercy, and to strive for holiness. In union with his Savior, the follower of Jesus Christ can reach the perfection of charity, holiness, and the reward of the glory of heaven or bliss. Case study. By way of introduction, it may be useful to consider a scenario in a make-believe universe where aliens are coming to planet Earth. They arrive with their spacecrafts and, hovering above the Earth in space, they begin to gather information about our planet and the humans that inhabit it. Naturally, their technology is eons ahead of ours, and so they tap into our servers, cameras, and devices to obtain vast amounts of information about every aspect of human activity all over the world and throughout the centuries of human existence. Seeing the constant violence, strife, corruption, and divisions on all levels and in every place and age, they conclude that humans do not know what is good for their own selves. They resolve that the best option for dealing with humans would be to invade and impose order. Given their advanced technology, their plan is to implant a device in each individual so that in the moment a person sets about to do harm, he or she will be incapacitated to do so and necessarily will have to choose a different permitted course of action. Invasion follows, the plan is executed, and the world is purged of chaos. It becomes safe and ordered with a high standard of living for all using the advanced alien technology. Given this scenario, we can ask the following. 1. Are the aliens correct in their judgment that humans do not know what is good for them? 2. Is the world a better place after the imposition of order? 3. Would you welcome an invasion of this sort, or would you resist it, and why? So I'll read those questions again. You can consider them on your own, and we can have a discussion about it at some point. Are the aliens correct in their judgment that humans do not know what is good for them? Is the world a better place after the imposition of order? Would you welcome an invasion of this sort, or would you resist it, and why? This scenario was chosen because, believe it or not, it reflects a very important mindset of modern times, which inherited from the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment saw the intelligence as a constant activity, and that the world is just kind of like a clay, so that reality is somehow shaped by the intelligence, and it's just very malleable. And so the Enlightenment led us to, in many different ways, having persons, powerful groups with agendas of social engineering. You see this happening on terms of some social classes, economic imposition of certain economic ways of thinking. You see it, for example, in sort of extreme socialist or communist positions. We see it in extreme capitalist positions. We see it in the reality of slavery that has plagued the last centuries. All of these are kind of an atheistic philosophy inherited from the Enlightenment that feels that, well, this is what we need to do, that we need to impose on others what we think have to be outcomes and not to respect them as free individuals. And wow, think about if we can actually make people just follow along and feel happy with a chip like this. Well, then those who are the enlightened ones who are in control, that will be something that certainly that they would like to do. Well, is this happening? Think about it, and I think you can, with your friends, go out for coffee with someone, discuss this, and I think that it will be very interesting. You can have a very interesting discussion. That's all. Bye.